All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. So today we are going to run through District Administrator Portal responsibilities, and I will be kind of manning the slides here. We're going to talk through what those responsibilities are going to be as related specifically to the portal. We'll talk about portal access for new and returning superintendents, what the district administrator sort of their responsibilities within the portal, what that looks like, and within the tab, basically the presentation is going to go through the portal and what each of these tabs that the district administrator has within their portal account look like. So the big one is the district administrator tab, and there's two different sections of that, the collection activation code section and the administrator reports. There's also the student and staff NSSRS tab, which manages all of the student and staff data for the district. That contains collections such as advisor validation and then staff reporting and NSSRS validation. And then lastly, we'll talk through the data collections tab, which has a whole bunch of collections, including the consolidated data collections collection. So lots of collections to talk about. So to start with basic portal sort of, we'll show you here. Hopefully this pops up for me. I may have to slide it over. What the portal looks like. So I'm going to sign out here. And this would be your basic homepage of the portal. The Help tab is available to anyone without you actually being logged into the system. So you can go to the Help tab, and there's some great topics here that talk you through what activation codes are for the portal. And then also give some guidance for setting up portal accounts. So if you're a brand new superintendent or district administrator, even if you're a brand new data steward, the first step is setting up your portal account. And then we also have a document that walks through what the district administrator responsibilities are. So when we talk on this slide here about the Help tab, there's two kind of key topics. One is setting up your portal accounts, and then it's important to note that each of these portal accounts belong to a specific person, not the district system. So even if you have a changeover in staff, you have a new data steward starting, they'll have their own portal account, and then the leaving or the exiting data steward will close out their account. And then the other topic that's extremely helpful is number 3, the district administrator responsibilities document. And that goes through kind of as a new or an outgoing administrator, kind of what your next steps are. So to obtain district administrator portal access, we've been working with a lot of the new superintendents as of July 1 when their contract started. The previous administrator's access will need to be removed. So in some cases, we've done that for them because let's say they've retired and they're no longer available. But in most cases, we prefer that the previous administrator remove their own access. So that's step 1. The NDE Help Desk will then send the new administrator a code, and that's going to be your district administrator activation code. And that code is what gives you access to manage your district's data within the portal. The code will then be added by the new administrator into their portal account in the My Profile tab. And then NDE Help Desk receives the notice, and we approve that new administrator. So once that new administrator is approved, the district admin tab will show up in the portal account. And only the superintendent or the district administrator for that district is going to have this tab. They are the only one at the district that has this tab to manage the district's access. So there's 3 main tabs: the district admin one, the student and staff NSSRS tab, and the data collections tab. So as I mentioned earlier on, we're kind of going to go through this presentation based on the actual tabs themselves. So Denise, I think you're up next, right? You're going to cover the district admin tab for us.
Yes, I am. So as Naomi mentioned, only the district administrator has this tab. And this is the tab where all of those the activation codes for each collection is listed. We have 2 sections. Actually, I'm sorry, we have 2 sections on this district admin tab. So we have the collection activation codes and then also the administrator reports. So the collection activation codes section, I think we can go to the next slide, Naomi. Thank you, sorry. So yes, sorry. And we do ask that district administrators provide the activation codes to their staff. So to do that, when you access that district admin tab, it's going to default to that collection activation code section. So you would choose in that drop-down box the collection name, and then you would receive a table displayed below. I will say you don't have to do the choose collection drop-down unless you are a superintendent or a district administrator for more than one district or school. But once you find a collection in that drop-down box, you can go ahead and to the next slide, thank you. You will see that table drop down below that has the activation codes and the user types. So for instance, this is a shot of the consolidated data collection, which usually has, which does have a lot of different user types. So you can assign a user type to a specific individual. The user type is important when you're assigning different collections to your staff. But there's the user type, and then there's also for the district administrator in the consolidated data collection, you are going to have a approver code. And if you notice, there is a restriction there that only one user can have it. And it is the approver. It only works on the district administrator's portal account. You'll also notice that on the left-hand side, you can see who has access to this collection and what type of access they have. And this is one way that you can manage your staff's access to the portal collections. If you see someone listed there that is no longer with your district, then you can use the little remove link to remove them from that collection. Go ahead to, yeah, thank you, sorry. And then the second section is the administrator reports. So you can download or look at a report either by district or by collection. So if you select the district user report, it's going to display your district's access by the user. So it's going to show you the user and what collections they have. And the collection user report will do the opposite. It'll display by the collection and who has access to that collection. And again, this is another way where you can manage who has access to what collections and whether or not someone should have access. So that's basically the district admin tab, and I think Jenny is up next.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about the student and staff tab. There's two sections: the student collections, the advisor person ID, and the advisor validation, and the staff collections, where we have staff reporting, NSSRS validation, and NDE staff ID. So for the student collections in advisor validations, there's 3 collection periods, our submission windows: the fall, year end, and follow-up. The follow-up is collecting from the previous year, things that happen over the summer, your summer transfers, summer drops, sped exits, that and your summer courses. So your follow-up is for the previous year. There are 4 activation codes for advisor validation: the district, then you have the 3 programs that are listed there. As district administrator, you would need to have all 4 of these activation codes added to the advisor validation. You add them one at a time into your advisor validation. For your staff, not all of your staff would have all 4 of these codes. They would have the district, and then they would have 1 or more of the program records depending on what their position is at your district. And that is your responsibility to provide the appropriate activation codes to your staff for advisor validation. So again, under student collections, we have the advisor person ID. This is where you create and view the ID numbers. Max had mentioned in his session first thing this morning that every student every year gets updated with their ID numbers. And this is important because this information from the person ID, the first name, last name, and date of birth populates your advisor validation student record. So if your record is not showing up correctly in advisor reports, check the person ID to make sure that the data is correctly in theirs, because that's where it's coming from. And every student, every year. So our student data, we have an advisor resources page, and this is where all of the data is for reporting. So under this resources page, down in the middle section there, the calendar, all of these down in the middle are like accordions. They will open up. So there's your calendar, data conference information, advisor data guidance. This again, Max talked about in the first session. Those are your data elements reporting for this year. So this is kind of like your main guide on what data is required by NDE. So lots and lots of information there. And as you scroll down this middle section, you'll see course codes and your clearing endorsements, program specific information. There's your person ID. All of the districts and school codes are available to you. Then in the left-hand column, you have additional information. So you're seeing the page we're on is advisor, and then, but if you go down and there's there's your CDC, non-public, and staff. So it depends on what you choose on the left-hand side, opens the accordions in the middle section. So this is a good one to have bookmarked and use if you have questions. Okay, for the staff collections, we have the staff reporting. That is a new collection every year. So you will have an activation code new for every year for the staff reporting. This does open in September, usually first of all, sometime in August that will open. And it does have various deadlines. Your September 15th is the statutory due date for reporting your staff. We do look at the data again, October 30th, and end of year, June 30th. This is one collection that does not usually get opened after the due date. So make sure at your year end that you have all of your staff reported appropriately. And that is staff reporting again is listed on that advisor resources page. That would be one of those selections on the left-hand column, because you have your staff reporting manual and all of your staff items. Yeah, just got that opened again. So your staff reporting and staff ID instructions are there. Then in the NSSRS validation, we do still do a few things for NSSRS validation. That is where your staff errors and warnings and your staff verification reports are relating to the staff reporting that you did the previous step. So this would be your second step of validation of your staff reporting. So you might get an error here saying you're missing a piece of information. In the verification reports, it'll give you the out of endorsement report, which is one you'll want to check throughout the year to make sure your staff do have the correct endorsement for the course that you're reporting them for. There are lots of other staff reports out there. There's an entire report of all of your staff, kind of the old fall personnel report, if anyone remembers that. But make sure you look over those staff reporting verification reports in the NSSRS validation. And then the NDE staff ID, that is where you would create or view staff ID numbers. Usually a number is automatically created when a staff person gets their certificate. But there's some times when you'll need to create a new staff ID, and it is good to add the Social Security number. If it's known there, that makes a good matching between this system and the educator certification system. And there to link here, this is a public site. If anyone, your district or even the public, can look up teachers' licenses to verify their licenses. This is great to use for you as a district. So you can search and see if anyone has the status of their certification. And then in the educator certification, their site, they have the business partner portal. That is where superintendents or staff that they select can go out and see when their staff certificates are getting ready to expire. And you would get a link from the certification administrator on setting up that business partner portal in the Teach system. So I'm going to hand it back over to Naomi to talk about data collections and to wrap us up. Thank you.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay? I've been playing around with my mute buttons. Great. So the last tab is the data collections tab. And as I mentioned earlier, it supports the collection of all sorts of types of data. So you could have some of the financial data that Kevin was talking about earlier, the LC2, the most recent, the census report that was collected, your annual financial report. And then there's even collections related to accreditation. Coming this year, you'll see some counselor and library media specialists not endorsed, a Rule 10 assurances, and even for the non-public systems, there's a non-public curriculum. There's a lot of collections within this tab that they are completing. And then, just all sorts of other things, the DHHS superintendent letter, exempt schools report. But the big one that we're going to talk about more today is the consolidated data collections, because that, and I'll go to the next slide here, the consolidated data collection is a collection within the data collections tab, but it's also a collection of collections. So Kevin talked a little bit about all the different ones that the finance team needs you to complete. But each of these, for access to the CDC, there's multiple user types. And Denise kind of talked about this when she was discussing the district admin tab. So you may have someone who needs access to everything within the CDC. Well, then you would give them the activation code for all. But you may also have someone that only handles staff data. So they would only need the user type for the CDC collection that was called staff. And so there's all these different types of access, and you could use all, or you could give someone staff and MIPS, or any combination really. For the district administrator, what's really helpful though is there's an approver user type, and it must be the district administrator who adds this activation code to their account. But when you have that approver type, you have basically every type of collection within the CDC. The only one you need to add is the MIPS. So some collection examples of what's within the CDC. We've got substitute teachers, we've got non-public membership, Title I non-public consultation. Kevin mentioned the pupil transportation report, all sorts of collections within there. And again, we have a resources page for the CDC. I'm going to pull up this same page here. Ginny mentioned it. You can click on any of these menu items here. Literally just updated the calendar for 21-22 for CDC collections. That's going to contain all your due dates, and open dates, because not all these collections are open year round. So that's worth looking into. And then also we added the finance page as a resource here in the PowerPoint, because so frequently you'll be needing to access their information. So anytime you guys have any questions, email the help desk. That is what we exist for, to help you guys. So we've got our email in here. When you send that an email, it automatically creates a ticket, and then we can follow up with you from there. The other thing that we always recommend new superintendents, new data stewards subscribe to is the NDE bulletin. And this is not an automatic thing. You have to go in, hit the little envelope icon and sign up and subscribe. We typically recommend that, people do only what they need to, because if you're working for public, you really only need to see notifications of that type. And we prefer that you get it right away or daily versus waiting for weekly. Otherwise, you're only getting updates once every week, and that can be kind of tough. So that's a really important one to subscribe for. So that is the kind of basis of our district admin presentation. I'll kind of talk